the things that I do in the studio with digital recording technology can be looked at as very positive and very negative. I do have an analog tape machine in my studio. So we have a 24-track Atari MTR-90. We have some reserves of analog tape left over, and I do erase old tapes and record over them for fun. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take the multi-track sends and mult them to Pro Tools and tape simultaneously, sync them up with SMPTE. Even if the client isn't paying for the tape, I've got a pile of old tapes, and I'll do that. When the clients know that the tape is running, they are on point. They are not expecting me to perform a miracle as soon as I hit stop. Oh, I was off key. Oh, I was out of time. Oh, can you move this snare drum around? No. This is a tape machine. This is no different than what you have in your cassette player. You can't just cut those individual sounds out and move them around. You got to cut the whole thing. If you all screw up, maybe then I can fix it. But if just you screw up, this is not a keeper. So one can make the argument that digital recording methods have lowered people's expectations of themselves in the studio. There are two ways to go and record in the studio as far as the tracking aspect of it. You're going to see right off the bat which one I favor. It's obvious. There's idea number one. Idea number one is I need to sit with these tracks for a long time. They need to marinate in my mind before I can pick out the best guitar solo. Some artists do not have the objectivity, even if I help them, to go in the studio, come back in the other room, and say, that's good, I'm going to keep that. I have a client, who shall remain nameless, who likes to go and do 15, 20 guitar solos. And then I will print him a CD. And if he wasn't paying me, I would never do this, because I say, come to terms with what you just played and pick one. But he will want a CD of 19, 20 different versions of this song with different guitar solos. And only a week later will he pick out the ending from track 14 and paste it into the beginning of take 12, and take 7 and 8 are going to be crossfaded together in the middle. And that's going to make a great guitar solo. What is going to happen if people keep doing that? They're going to go in there, going to do word by word now. The whole idea of music performance is going to be an artifact if that keeps happening. So what digital recording has allowed people to do is not make decisions and wait. Whereas when you're recording analog, people say, that was bad, I'm going to do it again. And when they say I'm going to do it again, they're going to do the whole guitar solo, not bar 1 through 4, and then you're going to punch me in bar 6 through 7. And come on. What digital recording allows me to do, though, I will tell you this. Sometimes I wake up 2 in the morning. I live across the street from the studio because some of my clients are late, and I got really fed up with going back and forth on buses at 2 and 3 in the morning. So I said, to heck with it. I'm going to move in. And sometimes I'll wake up at 2 in the morning and I'll say, oh, I've got it. I'm going to head down to the studio, and I know what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to pull up this song, and I'm going to work on it. I'm going to get my guitar out, and I'm going to lay that part down, because it just came to me while I was fooling around in my house. If my session is mixed on an analog audio console, I will take that into consideration before I just run down to the studio. Because it can take a good hour and a half to put one of my mixes together. Just the routing of the patch points can take about a good half an hour to make sure you've got it right and check all the signals and fix all the boxes. And then go through the entire audio console, resetting each button and the knob and switch on each sort of channel in the entire 56 faders that I use for every song. Okay? By the time I'm done with that, I am no longer inspired. I am like, oh, I just turned 50,000 knobs, and now I don't want to do that guitar solo anymore. With Pro Tools, if I get all excited about doing something at 2:30 in the morning, I can hop down to the studio. If my song is mixed in Pro Tools, I can load that bad boy up on my FireWire drive, plug in my guitar, and do that part. And all the settings will be magically revealed and set back to where they once were. And that is a benefit of digital recording technology. The fact that I can instantly, spontaneously recreate my mix in a multi-track format and add to it at any given time is probably what makes my records sound good. Because it's not always when you're in the studio on the clock that you think of great things to do. Sometimes it is at 2 in the morning. We did a shootout, and we've done a shootout, and DePaul University uses our studio to do shootouts every year. And the shootout is a blind taste test. Now, the students who are participating in the shootout, albeit are not professional recording engineers and have not spent 10,000 hours in front of a console and probably aren't the best people to do this judgment. But we do record a multi-track band in the studio, just like I had explained. You take the mics, you send them into the console, and you split them to these two different mediums. First, you have to calibrate the tape machine to the input level of Pro Tools so that a tone generator will show up equally intense on a channel on the tape machine as it will in the hard Pro Tools system. And then the students turn around, close their eyes, and we automate all the faders. So there's the first bank of 24 faders on one solo button, and the second bank of 24 faders on another. And we go, I mean, it's seamless. You can't really tell. And the students are saying, oh, which one is it now? I don't know. You tell me. Then they switch. And they switch again. When you're talking about a whole piece of music, and there are many multiple instruments, I frankly feel it's very difficult to tell the difference between a very well-calibrated Pro Tools system and a tape machine, depending on the frequency response of the tape machine, because there are many different sounding tape machines. But a very balanced, even tape machine with a linear frequency response that isn't sort of wacky. This isn't like a trebly tape machine or one that has a lot of bass or anything like that. It's very hard to tell the difference. Individually, in more subtle situations where there aren't 7 or 10 instruments as part of this mix, it's much easier, based on the artifact of tape hiss, which is something that you'll never get rid of, and also just something about the envelope of a tape machine. Tom drums are something I can tell. I can kind of tell if a tom drum was recorded onto a tape machine or onto Pro Tools because of the transient. What a tape machine does when it is confronted with a signal that changes amplitude rapidly is it kind of rounds that off a little bit. It's not reactive enough. It doesn't have what we call the sensitivity of a digital recording system. So sometimes people use the adjective smooth to describe the way that a tape machine sounds. I would say it just is slow. It reacts slower. It literally does smooth out the waveform of sound. So even what I've done is to take a digital recording and an analog recording of the same band, and then take that analog recording and dump it into Pro Tools and look at the waveforms. And what you'll notice is that the kick drum on the tape machine literally has a smoother curve to it. You can see it. And the one in Pro Tools is sharper. And the reason for that is the sensitivity of the tape machine. So I think our ears relate to analog because all professional records that we know of from the classic era of, say, like after World War II, all the way up to 1995-ish, were all done on tape. Our ears are so used to hearing that. When I hear Led Zeppelin, that's all tape stuff. And God knows how many millions of times I've listened to Led Zeppelin. So why shouldn't that sound good to me? Right? If all records were done on Pro Tools for the last 50 years, I think people would have an affinity for that sound. So I'm not so sure that bringing back tape machines and firing those bad boys up is really necessary, personally. As long as you can get your musicians to play well and understand that you're not a magic maker and they actually do have to play their instruments well, I vote for Pro Tools.